And we are live. We are talking today about Web3 utility. Welcome to the People Ask About Web3, where we demystify different Web3 business cases, concepts, strategies, plans, projects, and so on. Today, we are going to be talking about something that is fundamental for all Web3 projects. Fundamental and also something that everybody likes to talk about, and that is utility. What is the utility of different Web3 projects, and how that utility is important for the ecosystem, for the understanding of the project, for the future, and for everything. Today, we have Polar, who is a crypto investor and influencer, and we're going to be talking about and demystifying what utility means in Web3 projects. There's different versions of utility, different concepts, also in real life. So we're going to try to merge these concepts together and demystify what really utility should be and how it should be structured and presented to users in Web3 projects. Thank you so much, Polar, for being with me today, for being my guest, and choosing to talk about this topic that can be also very, very, very interesting and very delicate for many projects. So thank you again for taking the time. I leave the floor to you to introduce yourself, introduce the topic, and we'll get things started.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. I'm Power. I'm a crypto investor, crypto marketer, and also a CMO of seasonal tokens. I have been doing marketing for more than 15 years so far, and I have been doing crypto marketing for almost 3 years now. And since this 15 years of marketing, I can say that I have seen almost everything in marketing and its development. I have seen the growth of e-commerce, also advertising like Facebook advertising, Google advertising, and things that we accept as a default these days. So yeah, it has been a very interesting journey so far, and I'm also more and more excited to see how the journey of crypto marketing will evolve from here, and also help others to understand how they can better market their projects, because there is also some misunderstanding about crypto marketing in the world, together with some misunderstandings about the utilities that we are going to cover today.
Exactly. So let's start things off with this first question. I want to ask you, what is the definition of utility in the context of a Web3 project? So how is utility important, and what does it mean in Web3 projects?
From what we see in crypto, in most of the cases, we talk about let's say the usefulness of the token, like what people can do with these tokens, why they exist in the end, like what's the purpose of this project. And this is what people call utility. Like, can you buy a bread with the tokens? Can you use the tokens to get more tokens? Do you use the tokens to um, generate an NFT, for example, or anything like that? It's just some sort of a use of these tokens.
So how does utility differ from concepts such as values or being useful in a Web3 project? So right now you talked about that the value is usually, or the utility is usually denoted by associating something in exchange, or a means of exchange, exchanging value, being able to purchase something, representing a storage of value, and so on. So my question is, how how is are there different concepts that can refer to value or usefulness in Web3 that are not just related to a means of exchange? So,
Mhm.
so I know that there is many different projects in Web3. Some that are community based, that add value to the community and to the what users believe that is going to be the value, and so forth. I want to explore more a little bit the definition of utility that is not related to the usefulness or to the practical or tangible usefulness that we understand in maybe Web 2 concepts, where it's an exchange or a storage of value.
Yeah, so like you just mentioned, the storage of value is just one of the ways that we can describe the utility of a project. Like, for example, Bitcoin is something like that. Also, like you mentioned, the option of using tokens to award your community is also a way to use the tokens. Another way to use the tokens is to uh, somehow support the project, like give them funds so they can expand, or they can do more, or they can just have enough funds so they can live and fulfill their mission. And based on that, you expect prices, the price of the token to rise. Because if we have to be honest, currently the main idea of probably more than 90% of the people that invest in crypto is that by buying the tokens, they expect the
Yes.
price to rise, like their investment value to grow over time. Like it's really the case they buy the tokens to give them for their to their community, for example, or to just have them and leave them in their wallet and forget about them.
Or because the tokens serve any particular purpose. For example, like, I don't know, these they can be used in a specific blockchain or to do specific things. So it's I completely agree with you. The number one reason right now why people purchase tokens is expectations of incredibly high returns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the thing. So when we talk about utility, probably we should go one step back and explain the principle behind the utility. Like, people tend to invest in projects that have a lot of utilities due to the belief that these utilities will lead to a situation where a lot of people will buy a lot of tokens. And of course, if something like that happens, this is normally expected to lead to a price increase. So that's why, like, people really much connect the utility with usefulness and investment value. Like you said, there are many ways of using the tokens, but in the end, like, people are just looking for a promising project that has a utility, which, let's translate this in a Web 2 language, uh, which in the end solves a problem, something that you need to solve because you have a problem or you have a pain, and you have to find a way to overcome it. And this is how actually the companies are born. They are born because they are solving a problem.
They're offering some value. Obviously, they're solving an issue, offering some value. And if they're more competitive and doing it 10 times better than is currently being done, they have a business case to create a company. Exactly. Web 3 or Web 2, I guess.
Exactly. The problem with Web2 somehow is that the projects, because some of them are not real companies in the end, and a good amount of them are not real companies, um, they actually try to make people believe that this utility will lead to increase of the price. But in the end, what we have seen so far during this bear market is that this utility is actually not following the principle that we just mentioned, which is that something has to solve a problem in order
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
used, right? So if it doesn't solve a problem, then you are actually somehow relying only on your marketing. And when we talk about crypto, we are mainly talking about hype marketing. So
Yeah.
when the hype is dead, and when the prices start to go down, like, people start selling because they see that this utility is it's a waste. It just doesn't help at all. Like, it's someone that has taken something from the Web 2 world which already exists, and he or she or they have converted it in a Web3 project, so they can try and get the people to invest in, because of their sometimes financial motivations, but not with the motivation of actually making the world a better place, giving a better life to people, or just improving it a little. And this is why actually when there is a big sell off in the markets, like these projects with no real utility, even though they say that they have a utility, but if you are not solving a problem that hasn't been solved so far, you actually have no utility in the end. So that's why people start selling, even if they have a great community, a lot of investors and things like that, because people expect to buy something that will grow its value, and they
Yeah.
believe that this utility can somehow help. But over time they see that that's not the case, and like 90+% of the investors are actually like them. They don't understand the utility, they don't care about the utility, they don't use the utility or something like among these lines, and they're just in the project because they expect that someone will understand the utility, someone will use the utility, and in the end, this will lead to increase of their investment value.
Well, I completely agree with what you're saying. So many Web3 projects are built on hype without actually having a product, or like you say, solving an actual need or solving an actual problem where they can get monetized and actually add value to the system. They create a currency or a token just because it makes sense. It sounds easy to raise money with a token, and building a strategy on hype without a product behind leads to just generating more and more hype to keep the project alive. And like you said, when the market enters a bear or a recession phase, the hype dies out, and not having anything substantial behind it, it just doesn't demonstrate anything. Users die off, it starts selling, it loses the value, and most of the time the projects just slowly but surely die out because of a lack of interest. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the concept of utility. I want to ask you if you can explain me how the concept of utility is used in seasonal tokens, because we had a conversation already previously, and you gave me a very interesting analogy that I think all of the listeners should hear. Uh, it is a very interesting analogy that explains utility in the real world, but it can be also applied to the Web3 ecosystem. So maybe if you would just like to give an overview of what seasonal token is and how it works, and maybe explain it like you explained it to me last time we talked.
Okay, let me try. So first, seasonal tokens is Ethereum project with ERC20 tokens, which are proof of work tokens, which means that you can mine the tokens, and there are 4 tokens, like the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. They have 4 different prices which oscillate around each other, which means that they're somehow connected between each other, and their prices are somehow affected by the miners, the investors, and the farmers. And interesting thing about the project is that it has only one utility, and it is to be seasonal investment asset, which means that in a predictable way you can switch between the tokens in a way so in the end you increase the amount of tokens that you have, and they are more than the amount of tokens that you have started with. So that's the main utility of seasonal tokens, to be an investment value, which is investment asset, which has predictable cycles, something that we all dream to find. Like, for example, I suppose we all be very happy and very wealthy if we knew where the price of when the price of Bitcoin will skyrocket, and also when the price of Bitcoin will plummet. We
Now,
somehow
let me
don't.
just interrupt
Yeah.
you there. I have a question. So, how cannot that not break the market? I mean, if we all knew when it would rise, or if we all knew when it would plummet, we would all sell, and vice versa, right? So, how can that remain sustainable?
Yeah, so first of all, this is close to impossible to know the exact time, the exact moment. Somehow, there will be always someone who will be the first to notice that and benefit
Mhm.
from it. So, and because the market has its own economy, like its own wife and all, and its own principles and laws, then by following these laws, it's impossible to lead to a situation where everyone will be able to buy at the same level, because we know that somehow demand affects the price. And it will be the same for selling. Like if a good amount of people start selling at the same time, like the price will be pushed very fast down, and some of the people will start buying because the price is pretty cheap. So it won't be possible to actually break the market, because the only way to break the market is if all investors in the world are at the same time on a
Mm.
Zoom call, and all together push the same buy button, and all together have their orders fulfilled in the same millisecond. Then I suppose this is the moment where the market will be broken. But honestly, I don't believe that this is possible. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is far from the reality so far.
So back to my question from before. Seasonal tokens. You guys have created four different tokens that represent each season. Now the tokens value is its store of asset. So you invest inside of one token, and then you shift your assets between one token to another token, depending on the prediction of the price of one of these tokens. Now, can you explain to me again, why is this perceived as utility? So why should this be something that say, all right, putting money inside of a virtual asset like a token, like a Spring token, for example? Why should that be? Why should that have value when I can't pay with it, when I can't eat it, when I can't wear it, when I can't use it as a whatever? So it has no kind of utility, right? So explain that to me, please.
So first of all, it has utility. Just
All
to
right.
mention this, yes.
Okay.
Uh, the the main idea of the project is to be some sort of a hedge for your investment. So we see that there are some price fluctuations, sometimes very solid, and from time to time we know approximately when the price, for example, of Bitcoin goes up very much, and then it goes down with 50, 60 to 80%. And this has happened um, through all the cycles that we have gone through so far. And when I say cycles, I mean the moment where Bitcoin is going through halving. So in that moment, uh, we know that Bitcoin is produced in a twice less speed, which affects the price. So this is something that a lot of people misunderstand about the utility. They believe that in order for a project to have um, a price that is rising, it has to have a lot of utilities. So this can push the demand high, and in the end, this can lead to a price boom and, of course, reaching the moon. The thing is that there is something called the water diamond paradox. If you think a little bit about it, like what is more useful, because we said utility is like usefulness. Like what is more useful, water or a diamond? I suppose
Mm.
all of our watchers and listeners will say, of course, water is much more useful than a diamond. And this is true. But in the end, which of these two is more expensive, the water or the diamond? Of course, the diamond. And here comes the question. Okay, why is that? The water has a lot of utilities, like dozens, sorry, thousands upon thousands, probably millions of use cases. At the same time, like diamond, probably you can mention all of them at once, but in the end, the diamond has a higher price, and this is the paradox in the end. Why, when the water is that useful, has a lower price than the diamond? And the explanation is pretty easy, and it is that actually you can much easier start getting water than finding diamonds. And in the same time, there is much more water than diamonds on the earth. So this leads to the conclusion that the price is also very much affected by the supply. So when the supply is lower, this leads to a higher price. So it's not needed to have a lot of utilities, like the example of diamond, but you have to do it in a perfect way. You have to solve something. You have to actually deliver something in the end, and you don't have like many ways. You don't need many ways your token to be used in order to have a higher price. You like I said, it needs to solve something in a way that nobody else is solving, and also the supply is somehow limited, because the supply also affects the price like the demand. So in our case with the tokens, we are focused only on solving the issue for people to have a
Mhm.
product that can be an investment asset for them and grow over time. Of course, we can't promise to anyone that they will become millionaires by investing in our project. That's not possible, that's for sure. But we can promise them something that no one else can promise them, and it is that there is a moment where they can trade tokens for more tokens, and over time to increase the amount of tokens that they have, because of the halvings that are every 9 months for each of the tokens. So when they know when these halvings are going to happen, then they can expect that the token that is going through this halving, very soon it will have a higher price, because of what I just mentioned of the diamond water
Mm.
paradox, because the supply will be cut in half. And at the same time, we have also a farm that is also affecting the price, because farmers, they're somehow investors in the project, right? So when you're farming, yield farming, you're actually getting for the four tokens at the same time, but in a different amount. So when a token goes through a halving, 4 months later, the amount of tokens that farmers get for this token increases. So investors know that. And because they have this information, they start buying the token that has gone through this halving for two reasons. First, because the supply is going down, and they know this, and they expect that this will lead to a price increase because of the diamond water paradox that I just mentioned, and it is very very old one, and a lot of investors know about that. And the second thing is because when they buy the spring tokens, they not only that they'll have more right now, and it's cheaper to buy right now. But then if they start doing yield farming, then they'll start getting more of these tokens. So they walk these tokens in the farm and they start getting more tokens, which leads to even less supply in the market, which leads to even higher increase in the price. And then when you go through these cycles every 9 months, you now know how you can increase the amount of your tokens over time.
Very interesting concept. I invite everybody to check it out for themselves to learn about the paradox of life. You've heard the explanation directly from Polar, how the project is structured, how the tokens work together with each other, with having lots of different topics we've covered. I want to ask you before we close, is there anything that we haven't discussed that maybe we should have mentioned that is related and that might be important to mention still?
Yeah, probably one thing that I believe is important is that because the topic is utility,
Yeah.
like if someone wants to invest in a project, of course, he has or she has to do a very, very deep research. And this means, of course, going through the white paper. If you have a pitch deck, it's also great to check it out, to check the website, but also it's very, very important to check the team, their plans, their experience, and things like that. But something that a lot of people are missing, because these four things I think are pretty common. Like it's common sense. You don't have to watch YouTube videos to realize how important are these four things that I just mentioned. But the fifth thing that I believe a lot of people are missing are actually thinking about the utility. Is this utility actually making any sense at all? And if the project is adding this utility just because they want to add utility and say, look, we have
Yeah.
gazillion different
Yeah.
utilities, but 99.9% of totally not useful, and they don't make sense. And we have put there, so we have put them there so you can be hyped and believe that we are going to deliver, and we're going to have an amazing project that will have a price that will moon. But if you have a little bit more time to research and think, you'll realize that in the end this won't help you during a bear market, especially because like these utilities will be broken in pieces very fast and very easy. And this is what we learned just now, that if you are investing in a project like that, this means that this project will heavily rely on hype marketing, and hype marketing, it has its life. Like sooner or
Yeah, of
later
course. As
it
soon as the
it dies.
funds are over, as soon as the funds are over and there's no more influx of funds, hype marketing ends and the project ends with it. Uh,
Exactly.
Paul, thank you so much for being my guest today and for talking to us about utility, about seasonal tokens, and everything else. I will leave all of the links and questions that we have discussed today in the description of the live stream and of the podcast, depending how you are watching this. And once again, I want to also thank all of the listeners for staying in and listening to us. And Paul, thank you again. And I hope to have you again as a guest on my show, talking more about podcasts. And I know that you have a podcast as well. And I invite everybody, I will leave a link to that as well. It's very interesting. It's talking about crypto investing and things related in that field. So please check it out. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a
Thank you
great
very
day.
much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye bye.